Good morning. So today we're going to be doing a brief review of MLA formatting. This should be a review for most of you since you've written papers for your ninth and 10th grade English classes, but I wanted to go over some of the basics with you just so that you would have a good grounding for this paper and then for subsequent papers that we do in class. So the three resources that we're going to look at together on the PowerPoint, you have access to this PowerPoint, so you could click on these links anytime, but you also have access to all of these sources in the material for your paper assignment. There are a lot of different resources there, and these are some of those resources. The first is a sample MLA paper, and this is on the Al Purdue website, and I like it because it is an annotated paper, so it explains to you not only what the various elements are of the formatting, but it additionally, so it shows you an example and then explains. So that's really good. So a couple of markers of MLA is that MLA doesn't use a title sheet. I'm sure you already know that. What they do is they provide a heading on the first page. So that heading would include your name, my name that you would just write as ms.stewart. So the name of our course and then the date. And you'll notice that the date here is done in a different order than we usually write the date. That's also MLA formatting. So you would just put the date that the paper is due. So for us, that would be either the 4th or 5th of November, depending on whether you're an A-day student or a B-day student. Then in the center here, you'll see that there is the title. Notice how the title is not set off from the rest of the paper in any other way except for being centered. There is no underlining, it's not in bold, it's not italicized, there aren't extra spaces around it, it's just centered. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the last name of the writer of the paper and then the page number. In Google Docs or in Microsoft Word or basically any word processing program that you're using, you're going to do that by setting a header, and you will want to set it so that the page number will paginate for every page so that it won't just put, so like if you actually manually typed in Stewart 1, then it's going to show, or the one part will show up on every page. So there is an option within Google Docs for you to set it up where it will just automatically put the correct page number, and that's what you want to do. The margins in MLA formatting are 1 all the way around, and if you're using Google Docs, that is what that program defaults to, so you don't have to change anything. You should be using Times New Roman 12-point font, and you should be consistently double spacing your paper. So you'll see in this paper that that's what they've done, and you see on the second page how you don't have the heading. On that heading on the first page, you need to make sure that you actually type that into the body of your paper. You don't want to complete that in the header function in Google Docs, because if you do that, it will make the heading appear on every page, and it actually only needs to be on the first page of your paper. So as you kind of go through the paper, you'll just notice that it continues to be double spaced. You'll notice that there are some parenthetical citations. Parenthetical citations can also be called in-text citations, and those citations should be used for every piece of information that you find in a source. So whether you paraphrase or whether you quote, either way, you need to have an in-text citation. The standard in-text citation would be the last name of the author and the page number. Notice that there is no punctuation in between that last name and the page number. There's just a space. And also notice that the period goes after the citation ends. The standard citation is that, but if you don't have a page number, so for instance, if you were citing this web document that I'm looking at right now, so like this web page, notice that a web page doesn't have real page numbers on it, then you would just put Danhoff at the end of the sentence. If you use the author's name in a sentence, then you can just put the page number at the end. So I'm going to let you kind of go through this since you do have a link to this paper, but I wanted to show you the end of the paper, and that's where you'll see the works cited. Works cited means that these are sources that you actually have in-text citations for in your paper, and these are basically just the MLA citations for your sources. You'll note that this is just one more page of your paper. You continue the page numbers. Also, works cited is centered at the top of the page. All of the entries provided here are in alphabetical order, and you're going to set the hanging indent on these entries so that the first line of each entry is left justified, and then the subsequent lines of each entry are tabbed over, basically. So, for every source that you have here, you should have parenthetical or in-text citations that correspond. So earlier when I was showing you that in-text citation that was Danhoff, you'll notice that I can now go here and I can see the source that is here, that is Clarence Danhoff. You should not have something that is on your works cited page that's not in your paper, and vice versa. You shouldn't have an in-text citation that I can't then go find your works cited page entry. Those things should correspond and work together. And the idea would be that I could read your paper and see the in-text citation and then follow up by looking at your works cited to find out more information about that particular source. So the second resource that I've given you here, and really this is all about being able to use your resources, being able to use the things that I've given you that are online, that are available to use MLA formatting correctly. You know, you go to college, you might actually end up using another citation style more than you use MLA. Different disciplines use different citation styles. One really popular one is APA. So we'll have a lot of students who'll go to college and maybe be in the sciences, and they might use APA more often. And really, I think that if you can use MLA, you can use any of them, because really what you need to know about a citation method is that it's really about being detail oriented, and it's about using the resources that you have to just follow instructions. And so the next document is the works cited sample. And this is just a sample with a lot of different types of entries on it. You will notice that these are kind of skewed towards the 20s project, because this is actually Miss Krausen, formerly Miss Johnson, from 10th grade English. But you'll see that these entries are in alphabetical order. You'll see that they have the hanging indent set. So you'll, just kind of walk through that a little bit. And then the last thing is instructions for your parenthetical citations. So I've already talked about that just a little bit with you. So you'll notice that the basic one is, like I said before, it would have the last name and the page number. And then, you see here that sometimes you don't have, maybe you don't have an author, so you have to use the title. You also don't have page numbers, so you're just using the title. So you can go back to this sheet and kind of review some of the rules for doing that. I wanted to log into the LibGuide for our assignment and show you how you might utilize one of the citation makers that are provided for you on a resource like CQ Researcher. Every online database that you use through our school should have, I'm going to the video and not the actual research. Every one of these online resources should have a citation maker. Unfortunately, they won't all be perfect. And so you do want to use them with a little bit of care. So I'm just going to click on this very first report that comes up. Purpose of this is just to show you how to use a citation. So you'll notice that you have options at the top when you click on Cite Now. We want to choose MLA so that we're getting the MLA citation. And so what I would suggest is that you be in your Google Drive, that you open. I'm just going to open a Google Doc. You should have created an APLAC research, or maybe the name of this assignment you could have created within your Google Drive. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and you could actually copy and paste this just even into your works cited page document that you're using for the class. Okay. So I've copied and pasted this. You'll notice some things that I'm going to want to change about this particular entry. So do you notice that it kind of looks slightly grayed out in the background? Don't know what's happening. Okay. I don't know what the big red circle is for. But you'll notice that it's a little bit grayed out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to none on highlight. Then I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to change it to 12, and I'm going to come to the font, and I'm going to change it to Times New Roman. Okay, so I've got all that set up. Now I'm going to make sure that I have the formatting set to double space. And then I'm going to come here, and there are smarter ways to do your hanging indentions than the way I'm going to show you how to do it right now. So feel free to utilize those methods. However, this is always the way I do it. So I just hit enter after I'm at the end of the line, and then I tap over that way. And then this is actually missing a piece of information. So for all online sources that you find on an online database like CQ Researcher, you need to put the accessed date. And so I'm going to put accessed October 2020 at the end. And now my citation should be complete. So that's how you take something from one of those databases and then actually modify it a little bit to make sure that it is completely correct. Okay, so now I want you to go to this link and take this MLA quiz. It has 15 questions. You can use your notes. You can use any of the handouts I've given you. You can do a Google search for all I care. The only thing I really care about here is that you be able to find the answers that you need to answer these questions, because you need to be able to do these things correctly, because you don't want to get yourself into an academic honesty situation because you didn't understand something. So if you don't get 12 out of the 15 questions correct, I am going to require you to redo this quiz until you're able to get an 80% or higher on the quiz. Okay, so you should have paused the video to do that quiz. If you haven't done that, then you can go back, or you can go back later and do it. But we're going to do a little activity on embedding quotations. So embedding quotations basically just means that your quotations would be part of your sentences. So write a sentence so this is kind of these are the steps. And if every year I always say that if I could teach you one super, super useful college level skill, that this would be it, being able to embed your quotations and being able to work with source material. And I think paraphrasing as well is a super important college level skill, because you are going to be having to deal with complex text in college and having to be able to interact with those texts in a way that indicates your understanding, also indicates your writing ability, your ability to facilitate those sources into whatever you're writing. So this is just a good step-by-step way to do it. Write a sentence that introduces the quotation, embed the quotation smoothly into your sentence, and then write commentary that connects the quotation to your claim. So I'm providing a handout today that basically gives you examples of how to embed your quotation. And then I'm going to show you an example on the next slide of how I have done that using a source that we just read. So this is an example of the steps that I just gave you. So we call this a quotation sandwich. So you have a sentence introducing, a sentence with the quote embedded into it, and then some commentary basically, and that's a quotation sandwich. So the quotation is in the middle. What we call it whenever students don't use quotations correctly, like if they take an entire sentence quotation and just plop it into their writing without any of their words around it, I would call it a standalone quotation. Some teachers call it a quote bomb, but it's just not a marker of good writing. And one of the things that you'll see in higher level writing is that students and writers are just able to work with quotations with more facility. So I'm taking basically a question that relates to prison and the poverty trap, and I am providing an answer to that using this method. So I just created a question, and now I'm answering it using the tyranny source. So what makes it so hard for inmates to be financially successful after prison? And so I've got my sentence introducing the quote. Inmates aren't exactly welcomed back into the workforce with open arms. So that's my introduction. My sentence with the embedded quotation is, one reason inmates struggle financially is because of employers' well-documented reluctance to hire anyone with a record. Notice how I have tyranny after the quotation marks close, and then the period is after that citation. It's a pretty hard and fast rule that commas and periods go inside quotation marks, but one of the exceptions is when you're using a parenthetical citation like this. And so you might just want to note that. And then my commentary says, employers can discriminate against these workers very easily since inmates have to disclose their felony convictions on job applications. So that's basically just like a piece of common knowledge. In addition, these inmates have missed out on years of work experience that only further discourages employers from giving them a chance. So you see how I have got a quote, right? But I'm providing plenty of my own context and introduction and commentary around it. So when I read this little chunk of text, it feels like my writing and not just as if I am, kind of overutilizing or letting the quotes or the information from the sources dominate what I'm trying to say. So I do want you to practice this skill. So using prison and the poverty trap, answer the following question in the format that I just showed to you, the quotation sandwich. So you'll find this in the unit PowerPoint. And this is the question: what is an additional consequence of mass incarceration other than poverty? And then if you'll click on that link, it's going to provide you with a place to write one of these quotation sandwiches where you write an introductory sentence, a sentence with a quote in it, and at least a sentence of commentary. So we will stop there. Your homework for next time is to have your Works Cited page completed with at least 3 sources on it, to have it formatted correctly with Works Cited at the top, with double spacing, with the hanging indent, making sure that you have followed all the directions. Remember that on the LibGuide that the librarians created for you, there is additionally a citation maker link. So you can go to that link, and this citation maker is one that our librarians trust. And so you can use this, and you can also kind of click along here in the side, and it'll give you information. They'll give you examples of how to do the various types, periodicals. I was trying to see if they had one for, yeah, they do. So these are examples from like online databases, right? So like you might be using something from Gale, etc., and you can see how that looks. So you can just be going back and looking at that. So let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.